Good afternoon. As Dave mentioned, I'm a parent. I have 2 children who attend James Strath Public School in Peterborough. I'm here to speak to the fact that our school board is committing grave ethical transgressions in implementing its plan to install wireless internet or Wi-Fi in all of its schools. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, although I am a healthcare professional. I believe my professional background enables me to speak with some knowledge on medical ethics. Medical ethics are a set of principles that guide the practice of medicine and medical research. It is a vast field which rests on 3 pillars: the precautionary principle, informed consent, and transparency. The precautionary principle is a core value of the health sciences. We recognize it most readily as part of the doctor's Hippocratic Oath, which states, first, do no harm. A more technical definition, and this is courtesy of Wikipedia, advises that if an action or policy has a suspected risk of causing harm to the public or to the environment, in the absence of scientific consensus that the action or policy is harmful, the burden of proof that it is not harmful falls on those taking the action. In other words, activities that present potential for significant harm, even if evidence is limited and contradictory, should be prohibited until the proponent of the activity can prove that there is no risk of harm. In lay terms, this means we have a responsibility to err on the side of caution. Implicit in this is that there is a social responsibility to protect the public from exposure to harm when science has found some evidence of risk. The public looks to its elected leaders to advocate for them and to provide that protection. My second point is around that of informed consent. This means that individuals can choose to engage or not engage in an activity based on their assessment of the risks and benefits associated with that activity. As individuals, we have the opportunity to weigh risks and benefits and make informed personal decisions. As parents, we have the absolute right to do this risk-benefit analysis on behalf of our children. This right can be suspended only after due process by the legal system. School boards do not have this right. They can't take my children's picture, they can't take them on a class trip, or even take them across the street without my consent. They most certainly do not have the right to expose my children to non-ionizing radiation without my consent. Informed consent is contingent upon a principle known as transparency. Transparency in healthcare, as in government, means that information is shared freely, enabling people to make their decisions around consent with full knowledge of the risks and benefits involved. Doctors do not perform surgery, prescribe a drug, or do an invasive investigation without fully informing the patient of the potential risks and benefits of the procedure in question. The same applies to researchers. In fact, the Nuremberg Code, which was published after World War II in 1947, dictates, among other things, that voluntary consent of the research subject is essential, and that the subject must be informed of any potential risks associated with the research. All research on humans must be approved by an ethics review board before it can be conducted. I took the liberty of consulting with a medical ethicist, and I asked him this question. Let's say I proposed a study to examine the safety of Wi-Fi. My plan is to install Wi-Fi in a bunch of schools, then observe the children to see what, if any, health effects develop. I plan to do this without informing the parents of the children. Also, I would not obtain any parental consent for the children to participate in this study. In fact, I'm not even planning to tell the parents or the children that I'm doing this study until after the fact. This is exactly what my local school board is in the process of doing. I then asked the ethicist, would this study pass an ethics review? His response was absolutely not. Allow me to make this point perfectly clear. A governing group of doctors and scientists would not allow other doctors and scientists to do what my school board is planning to do to its students, to my children. We are fortunate in Peterborough in that all 4 of our local federal candidates have expressed some level of concern regarding the safety of Wi-Fi in schools. In addition, our Conservative incumbent MP, Dean Del Mastro, has indicated that he thinks the school board needs to rethink what it is doing. I'm hopeful and I expect that whichever candidate is successful in winning the Peterborough riding will continue to pursue much stricter federal safety standards regarding radio frequency radiation. I also expect that at a provincial level, restrictions on the use of Wi-Fi in schools can be enacted, along with policies put in place to ensure transparent, ethical process and adherence to the precautionary principle on the part of school boards. These are not the school board's children we are talking about. They are mine. The school board is quite literally planning to do unauthorized, unethical research without transparency, without consent, and completely ignoring the precautionary principle, on my children and on every other child who attends one of its schools. The school board does not have the right to experiment on my children. It does not have the right to make decisions that may affect my children's health now and in the future. And it does not have the right to decide whether the level of risk associated with prolonged Wi-Fi exposure is acceptable for my children. Only I have that right, and I say no. Thank you.